Okay, now we're recording.
Sure.
Let's start over.
Um,
Okay, will you explain to us again what the farm does?
Sure. Benevolence Farm is a nonprofit whose mission is to provide women leaving prison with the opportunity to grow food, nourish self, and foster community. So we are a residential, sustainable farm, 13 acres of land, a small 5-person house. Well, it's a decently sized house to support 5 residents who are all formerly incarcerated women. The idea of the program is that we start meeting with women about 3 months before they are due to be released from prison, and to ascertain whether or not this is a good fit. It's a voluntary program. It's not part of anybody's parole. Nobody's forced to come to Benevolence Farm. And we recognize that it's probably not a good fit for everybody. But for women who are interested, we're excited to have them. It's a 6 to 24 month program. We're really interested in meeting people where they are and focusing on their needs. So if you don't need to stay for as long, that's great. But if you need to stay a little bit longer, that's fine too. Women will work on the farm as well as work with a case manager, doing wellness programs, taking classes if they're interested, learning job skills. And the program will start out with more structure and then lose structure as people spend more time and become more self-directed. The goal of having a farm isn't to create sustainable farmers. It's a vehicle for us to provide formerly incarcerated women with housing and employment. Those are 2 really important parts of reentry process. And there are a number of other job skills that go along: small business management, marketing, creating value-added goods. And we really want our residents to take ownership of the farm. They'll be working closely with our farm manager, Matt, to determine what are we going to plant? Where are we going to plant it? Who are we going to sell it to? How do we market this? What's the smartest business decision to make in these circumstances? But that's some basics.
Okay, that's a good start. So since we met at the Sustainable Agricultural Conference, let's talk a little bit about, well, first I had a question.
Sure.
Who started the farm and why? And then why you decided to be a presence at the conference?
Mm-hmm. Well, Tanya Gisa is our executive director and the founder of the program, and she has many years of experience as a social worker, and read an article in the New York Times, maybe in about 2006 or 2007, that said that 1 in 100 people in the United States was incarcerated. And that was really disturbing to her. I just was looking at some statistics, and that was still true in 2012, 1 in 100 people. And in her work as a social worker, I think she found that there was a need for reentry programs, particularly for women. From my very limited experience, I've been with Benevolence Farm since September. I've seen more programs for men than for women, but women are the fastest growing prison population. A higher rate of women are being incarcerated than men currently. And so that's kind of where the impetus was.
Okay.
Tanya has a real heart for sustainability and the environment, and for her background, that's kind of how prison reentry and sustainable farming came together.
Okay. Now, in terms of the conference, what did you
Sure.
get from that, and what led you to? Was that your first year?
Yeah. So Benevolence Farm, we're members of the CFSA program conference, and I had the opportunity to go, and I'm interested in sustainable farming, so I went. And that was kind of what took me there. I'm very happy to be working at Benevolence Farm, and part of my interests are in sustainable farming. It's not something that I know very much about, but it's something that I would like to learn about. And so it was really great to be able to go and meet people like you and hear Michael Twitty speak and all of the other incredible folks there, especially because some of it dealt with the intersection of race and farming in the South. And that's relevant to us.
Right. What did you take away from the conference that you shared with the rest of the staff or even the clients at the farm?
So we actually don't have any full-time residents yet. We haven't opened our doors to residents. We're not quite ready. We're almost there. We do bridge programming, but no full residents yet. So what did I take back to the staff? Took a lot of excitement. I learned a lot from the beginning farming workshops that I went to, just listening to other folks' experiences. And I think from a conversation that I went to, that it was Michael Twitty, he was presenting one morning, and there was a small group. We had some really personal conversations about different things.
Okay, we have a question. Carrie has asked if you've heard of the plant in Chicago.
I haven't. What's the plant in Chicago?
Carrie, can you? They use aquaponics and fish. Okay, she shared a link. So can you see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
So we can check that out. We'll have to get them on for a future episode. But in terms of taking back the excitement and preparing, one of the things I've been thinking about and talking to people about is the future for nonprofits as they adapt to the grant-making landscape as it is, where there's not as many grants, more of them are invitation only, and it's harder to keep them, and there's a lot more competition. How does that affect the farm in terms of looking at being a sustainable enterprise?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I will be upfront and say that I do not do very much with our fundraising. I work with volunteers in community outreach, but from what I know from attending staff meetings and resource development meetings and listening to what my coworkers have to say, we've been really lucky that we've worked with some family foundations that have been very supportive of our cause. We work really hard to be in touch with our local community. In September, we were awarded a $15,000 grant from Impact Alamance. We're in Alamance County, North Carolina, and it was a tool. It was a grant specifically for tools. And that was really cool that we were able to buy a tractor with that.
Oh, wow.
So being connected to our local community has been really important. It's important to our mission, but it's also important to our sustainability, our financial sustainability. So that's kind of my awareness of where we are. But you're right. I mean, we apply for a lot of grants, and it's just an ongoing process.
What is your biggest? Sorry, my dog is going to start barking. What is the biggest challenge that you see in with your position in terms of outreach? I've pretty much had good interactions with people so far, which has been really nice. I worked at Habitat for Humanity in Orange County last year in their community outreach. I did community outreach in their family services department, and I wasn't sure how the transition would go. Habitat is a really big international organization. It has a lot of like name brand recognition. Right. Folks know what you're talking about when you say, oh yeah, I work at Habitat. Right. And moving to a really small local organization like Benevolence Farm, it's much more of a process of education. So everywhere I go, I say, oh yeah, I work at Benevolence Farm. We provide blah, 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 blah. So I'm constantly talking with people about what we do. And that can be really exciting because I get to have great conversations with people who are either already interested and passionate or have no idea about it. People who are interested in sustainable farming but don't know anything about mass incarceration, or the opposite. And so it's been really fun to kind of connect those two worlds. But that can be challenging because sometimes it's like, why are you on a farm? How is this relevant? But I think parsing out the nuances there is challenging, but also very rewarding. And so what do you answer when someone says, why a farm? What does that have to do with reentry?
Yeah, I think part of it was our founder's vision, that that was her interest, and she founded the organization. Part of it was a real belief that as we take care of the earth can take care of us. That real power comes from stewardship of the land. When you plant something and watch something grow, that kind of responsibility can be really empowering, and we want to empower our residents. That's really important. There are we do some horticultural therapy programs in the bridge programming at the moment. And so there's a connection there, when residents attend groups or meetings during the day and then go out and work on the farm, how can our farm manager, Matt, connect? Well, what are, people are talking about things that they want to leave behind or cut out of their life or help grow. So how can we relate, ripping out old okra plants or picking peppers to what do you want to cut out of your life? What do you want to help nurture and grow? And so there are kind of metaphorical parallels. So a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that's very transformative. What is your personal experience with gardening or farming?
This is pretty much my first one.
Okay.
I'm interested, but I don't have a lot of experience. We had a garden when I was little growing up. My parents still have one. So I'm used to being around them, but I dug in the dirt and found toads. I don't have a green thumb. Okay. I'm sad to say that yet. Hopefully that'll change. That's part of what drew me to Benevolence Farm. My background is more in gender studies. And I am more experienced working with survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And so that's my background.
Which there's a lot of in incarcerated populations. So
yes, there is. Okay. So that was more of my previous experience that's relevant to Benevolence Farm instead of farming. I'm really interested in farming, and I do believe that creating good change in local food systems, because part of what we want to do is donate some of our produce to Alamance County food pantries and food banks. So bringing good food to local food systems is an issue that I can totally get behind.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we had talked a little bit about was my interest in how art and tech and those kinds of things could be part of this kind of thing. What has been your experience or observation, or even just your thoughts on, okay, hold on, we have a question. Well, hold it let me get the question out. Was about like using art and as part of the transformation, because when you talked about the use of metaphor and planting or weeding, that very much dovetails with conceptual performance and things like that.
Yeah. I don't know. We have a programming committee that's been developing our programming for the farm. And I know that creative projects are a part of that. I don't know how much. I haven't had as much. I haven't done as much work with them. So I don't know how that'll be a part of what we do moving forwards, but I would be shocked if it wasn't.
Right.
Because especially with value-added goods, creating candles or making lotions or chapsticks or canning, or I think there's an art, and I think art and craft have sometimes been separated based on who's been making which in society. But I think there's a connection.
There's a connection.
Yeah, I have a hard time distinguishing between them, and I think craft and craft work is art. So I think part of what residents will be doing, and staff will be working with them, and volunteers who are doing the workshops will be part. Perhaps not how we conventionally thought of it.
Okay. Carrie's just going to ask questions, and we'll do
it.
So one she asked was, what is the food? Have you heard of the Food is Free project?
I think I've heard of that mentioned recently, and I don't know anything about it, but is it a national program?
I am not sure. The one that I'm thinking of, I can't think of the name of it, but the way that it works is they have somebody who collects donations at a farmer's market, for example. And then at the end of the day or what have you, they go around and use that money to
Yeah.
buy produce that is given to people in need or shelters.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm drinking Perrier water. This is not like
That's
alcohol or anything.
Yeah, so I just went to their website and I didn't look, but from what Carrie just said, that sounds awesome. I know that there's a program in Carborough, North Carolina, which is currently where I am, that is called Farmer Food Share. And so folks at the Carborough Farmers Market can buy produce and leave it at the Farmer Food Share stand. And they also work with farms and producers all over the area. And that food is donated to different institutions and programs here. So there's something similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it sounds like very similar then. Maybe they just call it something different, because I have seen that sort of thing where so almost like the food drive type concept, except it's fairly more local. Now, I said you were near the Triangle, but I don't know that that's actually true. Are you?
We're kind of, so I'm in Carborough, which is right attached to the end of Chapel Hill. So I'm in the Triangle right now, and the farm is located in Graham, North Carolina, which is between the Triangle and the Triad. The Triad is Winston-Salem, High Point, and Greensboro.
Okay.
And so we're kind of located between those two communities.
Okay. Well, for people who don't know where that is, you just have to check a map.
Yeah.
Now, where are you actually from, Bethany?
I'm from closer to you. I'm from Beaufort, North Carolina, which is right on the coast. So coastal plain.
Yes, that is the region where I live. What is the thing that you miss the most? Can you even tell a difference when you move from one region to another in North Carolina?
Oh yeah. And I moved around a number of different places growing up. I lived in Beaufort for when I was born until I was 8, and then I lived in a different part of North Carolina for a few years in middle school that was also in the coastal plain. And I think there's a different, it feels different. The coastal plain feels farther away from things because I think a lot of North Carolina's largest cities, apart from Wilmington, are in the Piedmont, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Greensboro, Winston-Salem. And so I think life on the coastal plain can be more, it's farther away from things.
Do you mean conceptually?
Yes, in part, but I think there are certainly plenty of places here that are as well. It feels more remote down there.
I would tend to agree, which was one of the reasons that I enjoyed the conference so much.
Yeah.
Okay, now Carrie is asking if you have a place where I guess community can come and meet up, like a mini We Facebook for Benevolence.
I'm not sure what a mini We Facebook is.
She just made it up.
Okay.
She means something like where people can interact and talk or something like that, I guess.
We have a Facebook page.
Okay.
And we have...
So they have a Facebook page.
You mean a physical place for people to hang out, or... okay,
Yeah.
online. So we have a Facebook page, and you can just look us up on Facebook. It's Benevolence Farm. And we're currently, we've got a great website right now, but we're working to do some updates. And so there's a blog that's there, but is never updated. And hopefully that blog will be a spot where staff and residents and volunteers and other people who are involved can post more and kind of continue that conversation. But we also have a newsletter that we send out about monthly.
Okay. So what is your focus now? You mentioned that you didn't have any full-time residents. So what is your main focus?
Yeah, so we're working right now. We're at our end of year fundraising push. So donate to Benevolence Farm. We're part of the Indie Give Guide, which is really exciting. It's our second year there. And that's a great way for nonprofits in the Triangle to raise money and really target younger donors.
Okay.
Yeah, the Give Guide is really cool. So we're kind of in that last fundraising push, but As I was mentioning, we do some bridge programming. So folks, groups of people, women that are considered high risk for whatever reason, people who are at risk of experiencing the criminal justice system, or women who have experienced domestic violence, or people in substance abuse programs. Different groups come out to the farm and do some horticultural therapy programs or gardening programs. They make teas or balms and kind of work with plants. So it's more, it's a couple-hour workshop.
Okay.
We do that. We're also working with the Burlington Dispute Settlement Center Juvenile Restitution Program. It's a long title. And so we have young people that are required to do community service hours through the teen court program in Alamance County that come out and do some of their community service hours on the farm. And we're working to turn that into more of a mentoring program so that folks aren't just getting community service, they're also getting some mentoring as well.
So you would be matching them up with a mentor, or would you be partnering with a mentoring organization like, I don't know, Big Sisters or something?
Right now, Matt, our farm manager, is kind of acting as the mentor, and so he's only been working with them. They need a woman to work with young women, and so I've kind of stepped in to take that place, but we haven't had any young women participate yet. He is working with another group to provide mentors. So there's a mentoring group that will be coming in to kind of do some of that. And so then there will be a mentor-mentee coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. And the idea is that eventually residents will take on some of that mentoring themselves.
Wow. It's really exciting because you're kind of at the early part of the journey. And we'll be able to watch as all of this unfolds and you grow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really exciting. One of the things we talk about on staff is people come in and are really surprised when we don't have residents, and it's kind of trying to communicate the idea, well, that all nonprofits have to start somewhere, and so we're still in that startup phase because we want to be ready before we welcome anybody to the farm. We really want to be prepared, and it would be irresponsible of us.
Right. Now, Carrie mentioned Drupal. So I guess that's something to think about when you guys do your redesign, because it's a free open source software. So, you don't incur the cost of your background content management system. So just something I know she's a Drupal advocate, a Drupal fan. I shouldn't say advocate. She's a huge fan and a Drupal user. And I think Carrie does some design. I think she's doing her project on Drupal. So anyway, as we wrap this up, what would you like to leave people with as parting thoughts about Benevolence Farm?
I guess I encourage everyone to try and break down some of the stereotypes that exist around people who've been through our mass incarceration system, our criminal justice system. I don't know how just it is, but that's my own belief. That is not what Benevolence Farm espouses. Right. So I encourage folks to recognize that everybody deserves a second chance, and I certainly don't want to be defined by my worst actions. So why should someone else? So I hopefully encouraging people to pay attention to incarceration and and then be aware of food systems in our communities and who has access to food and who doesn't, and how we can support sustainable agriculture across the country and in North Carolina.
I love that you bring sustainability back to such a practical issue, because before you got here, I was saying that this is something that everybody should care about, because people have to come back into our communities, and we have a vested interest in their success when they get out. And things like this, because I know that I did a fatherhood program targeting similar population. And one of the things that shocked me was that mediation trainings and things that teach those kinds of communication and basically life skills just reduced recidivism by, I think it was like 87%. And I thought, like, why isn't everybody doing this?
Yeah, there's so many things that we can do to prevent recidivism and to prevent incarceration in the first place. That I'm hopeful that there's a national conversation right now happening on both sides of the aisle, a bipartisan conversation about incarceration and how, because we can't keep building prisons.
Right.
I'm really excited that conversation is happening federally.
I agree. And I think that also it's become an easy form of economic development for some communities to, sign a private prison contract.
Yeah.
It creates X number of jobs and people are only looking at the short term, but that's a different conversation. But so really this is dealing with the aftermath of that being a reality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Hold it. Carrie wanted to say
I want to read Carrie's comment.
I just wanted to say that from my own experience of being locked up at a young age and going through the care system, I found most that people understand what's doing all sorts of things, like people with jobs, my business, with my service. Yeah.
That's so, that's such an issue. If people can't be connected to parts of the community that can reach out and empower folks, then, how, I don't know, there's just such a disconnect there. There are some really great resources in the Triangle that work with women looking for jobs, including women who are experiencing homelessness or have criminal records. One of the programs is Dress for Success, and they do a lot of job placement work and career coaching.
Yes.
Free professional suiting, which is really important. Carrie, thank you for sharing that so much. It's a really real problem. We're hoping that through this program, we can really build those connections with other community organizations who can employ residents. That's another thing that we're excited about. We just started with a new marketing intern who is interested in documentary storytelling through photography, but also video. And one of the things she said when we first met was, well, are you comfortable with me turning over the camera to the residents so that they can tell their stories themselves? And we said, yes, that is so what we want. And anytime that we can have the formerly incarcerated women in the community that we have worked with so far who have made their stories available to us, anytime that we can have their voices instead of ours, we want that.
Right.
Because really, you don't need to hear from me. There's somebody else out there who it's better to hear from.
Well, next time we do one of these, we'll do it with, we'll do it with some of the people staying there after you guys have some. My dogs are all in my face. But having clients, share their stories and their experiences, because that would be really awesome. And one of the great things about this kind of technology is that it's so open. And one of the other things that I thought about was Carrie with the Drupal comment reminded me was looking at peer-to-peer models and how that might be able to help the women look at reestablishing themselves and ways to give back to Benevolence Farm as, it helps them. And I think I sent you some information. We'll talk about it another time. But that basically that has a lot to offer in sidestepping some of the hurdles of employment and becoming entrepreneurs, looking at how to leverage skills of a volunteer community. And since they're already volunteering, it's just really almost like a re-envisioning or reapplication of an existing volunteer network. So anyway, we will wrap this up. And thank you again, Rebecca.
Thank you so much for setting this up and contacting me. It was so nice to hear from you and get to see you again.
Yes. So now this will be recorded and people will have another resource to learn a little bit more about what you do. And hopefully some people will get in contact and want to volunteer and make donations. Oh, you're welcome, Carrie. And thank you for showing
Thank you so
up.
much for sharing. And
Carrie is in Scotland, by the way.
hello, Carrie. Thanks for tuning in. I really
It's a very okay. That's my dog hitting my desk. He's telling me that's enough. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Bye, Rebecca. Bye, Carrie.